Formula One is going all in on their American audience this year and an attempt to grow it. But the question is whether or not it's going to pay off. Since 2016, when Haas joined Formula One, we have technically had an American team on the grid. But since 2019, we've seen an intentional push to grow the American audience as a whole. But this year, with one of the biggest changes we've had in Formula One in a long time, Cadillac joins the grid as the 11th team. And with General Motors' presence as well as Ford's presence with Red Bull, we now have two of the major American car manufacturers on the grid. With Cadillac, it's been made very clear that being the American team is a large part of the way that they want to go across their branding. While they don't have an American driver on the grid next year, they have made this big move to bring Colton Herta over, having him leave IndyCar and enter Formula 2 with an attempt to actually earn the super license points that he needs to be on the grid soon. And then with Honda's exit and Ford taking a larger presence on the Red Bull team, we're actually seeing their livery launch take place in Detroit. And then on top of all of that, we also have Apple TV taking over the F1 broadcast rights in the US. If we look at 2018, the year before Drive to Survive actually premiered, the US ratings for Formula One races were mostly under 1 million viewers. And year after year, the viewership did grow. The biggest amount of growth we saw on ESPN when it came to the US audience was in 2022 when the Miami Grand Prix started. That year, the US viewership of the Miami Grand Prix was over 2.5 million viewers, which was about 1 million viewers over the next most watched race, which was Canada. In 2018, ESPN reported an average viewership of 554,000 viewers. And by 2025, they had met a new record of 1.32 million viewers on average. And with that amount of growth, it makes sense as to why Apple would have wanted to take over the streaming rights. As they're trying to build their own subscriber base, they're also taking on a property that has a rapidly growing fan base. But what's interesting about this season specifically with Ford and General Motors and their approach to the beginning of this season is that it feels like the intent now is to try to give the American audience a little bit of hometown pride that we kind of lack in this sport. Because of the fact that Formula One hasn't necessarily been the most popular in the States, we also as an audience find ourselves picking teams and drivers just based off of vibes. While British fans, for example, have a number of drivers on the grid that represent them, as well as a number of teams that are based in their home country, US-based fans have technically had Haas, but Haas has never really marketed themselves as an American team. Now with Cadillac entering the grid and Red Bull leaning into Ford as part of their marketing strategy, there is a possibility that as new fans discover the sport this year, they'll move into it becoming new fans of those two teams because they do have that American presence. The same way we're used to picking football teams or basketball teams in the States. And we're seeing both Cadillac and Ford make two very big moves. Ford puts their livery launch in Detroit, and Cadillac is planning their livery launch as a Super Bowl commercial. Overall, I'm interested to see how much of this US-based marketing actually works, how much of it actually brings in new fans, and how many of those new fans pick one of these two teams based off of these marketing strategies. And of course, how much the shift to Apple TV helps or hurts the viewership base in the US. Whether you are new to the sport or you've already been a fan of it, have Cadillac, Ford, and the move to Apple TV changed any of the ways that you view your own fandom when it comes to Formula One?